This is Jim Personnel.
Like to say good evening to everybody. Agenda of the Belton City Council electronic meeting, December 8th, 2020. We're calling a work session into order. Items for discussion. What do we have for review, City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, the first item that we have is to discuss some changes that are going on in the UDC code. And that's chapters 1, 28, and 30. We have Dave Clemens, our Planning and Building Director, here to speak to those items. Dave.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to summarize several proposed amendments to the Unified Development Code that were considered by the Planning Commission on November 2nd at their regular meeting in a public hearing. Basically, we have 3 items for the council to consider in this work session. And if there is concurrence on these items, you'll see that we do have a draft ordinance set for first reading on the regular agenda. We did prepare a spreadsheet that we hope was a helpful tool for the council. That spreadsheet lists the existing wording, existing provisions in the code, and then the next column lists the proposed amendments. I also want to acknowledge the work that Patrick Corcoran did in helping prepare this information, and Patrick's prepared to jump in this evening and help me with anything he thinks essential or any questions that he might want to answer for the City Council. To begin, the first amendment pertains to abandoned signs. We would like to list abandoned signs and create a definition of abandoned signs to help us with code enforcement activities. Presently, in our Unified Development Code, we have language pertaining to sign maintenance and sign condition, and those things can help us with some enforcement activities, but I do believe that having a specific call out for abandoned signs with the definition would help us in situations where we do have signs left after business close and give us a better avenue to have those signs removed. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that particular item. I think it's very straightforward, and I'm sure the council could see the advantages of having that as an enforcement tool. If there's no questions about that, I will go ahead and proceed.
I have a question. What about the sign that's on 58, where currently the tire sign is? It has the big liquor sign outside, the electronic one. It's been there for, what, 25, 30, 40 years, whatever. How does that play?
That is an abandoned sign. That is an abandoned sign, and it would be all under this definition. Yes, sir. Taco Bueno is one of my other current favorites, too.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Other questions? We got Councilman Savage.
So is any of these signs, once this is done, I agree they need to be taken care of. Is there any way that any of them falls under grandfathered in this ordinance at all? If they're not being used, they're considered abandoned, they need to come down or be corrected. Is that right? Can you hear me?
I did not catch the second part of your question, Mr. Savage.
I think the point is anything that's considered abandoned will be taken down or taken care of. There's no grandfathered in for the post or anything like that. It'll be either corrected or taken down. Is there anything that's grandfathered in under this once they're abandoned or considered abandoned?
No, this amendment would set up a prohibition on abandoned signs, and Patrick and I discussed that. Signs would lose their nonconformity by virtue of this. We don't have a specific enforcement program set up to initiate this yet. We wanted to make sure that the council agreed and authorize these amendments. And if we do proceed with this, we'll set up an enforcement mechanism and beginning working on those problem signs that are left when businesses close.
Thank you. That answers my question on it. Our feed is not doing well tonight. We don't get to talk steady. I can only hear you occasionally. So let that be noted. Thank you.
You got any questions? Anybody else? Council,
Okay. Would you like me to continue, Mayor?
I've got one question. It's on the page 2 of this. The paragraph under the last paragraph under where it says maintenance, kind of towards the bottom. It speaks to the a business that's abandoned, its location or tenant space. And then it refers to owners and agent or persons having beneficial use of the building. Would that apply to some, like the next tenant, or is that strictly a responsibility of ownership of the building?
That is exactly the new wording that's proposed. That is the insert wording, and that pertains to primarily the property owner, the existing property owner, or in some cases, a property manager who represents a property owner.
Okay, I think that answers my question. I'm just curious as to where the responsibility falls if, say, you're a new owner of a building, or you're the owner that had it rented out and somebody put a sign up and now they've left town, or maybe just upped and left, and you're sitting there with your property and somebody left a sign behind, where the responsibility lies.
Well, that would be on the property owner. They're responsible for all phases of the real estate, for all types of maintenance. So yes, sir, I think that the responsibility would be on the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Even a new owner.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Dave, are you just going to read down the list?
I'm sorry?
Are you just going to read down the list? Are we going to go through all of these?
Yeah, that's generally the first item. I'm just generally summarizing the 3 main items.
Okay, thank you.
So again, that is creating a category for abandoned signs and a definition of abandoned signs. So if I could, I'd go ahead and continue. The next item on the spreadsheet on page 2 pertains to political signs. Presently, our Unified Development Code provides that political signs cannot be erected more than 30 days prior to an election, and that political signs shall be removed 7 days after an election. And due to a decision by the Supreme Court, we are eliminating those dates and durations for political signs. This is one that Patrick helped me on, so if there's anything Patrick would like to add to that, please do.
I think you summarized it pretty well from just this initial standpoint. And obviously, if there are any questions by the city council, I'll be prepared to answer them.
Councilwoman Davidson.
I might sound stupid, but what is a snipe sign?
A snipe sign is generally one of the little signs you see on the right of way on the little aluminum stakes, like house painting or babysitting services or lawn care. There's all kinds of snipe signs that you see, and we're constantly doing enforcement and pickup of those. That category already exists in the code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a couple more questions. Sorry, I read through this earlier and made notes, and now I have more questions. So vehicle signs are prohibited. Like, in general, vehicle signs are prohibited?
That's existing wording in the code. Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
So all of the signs that you see on cars advertising businesses are actually prohibited?
Yes, they are. Which part of the spreadsheet or the spreadsheet are you reading from?
So I'm in section 30-6, which is the one you just kind of talked about, and the removal of the timeframes for political signage. And it
Okay,
does.
yes, I see that. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, technically, if I could, technically, if there is a van parked in a parking lot and it says Roger the plumber, um, that's technically a prohibited sign, and we would have the ability to ask that individual not to park the sign right out on the right of way. But as a matter of practice, that does not come up often, but it's a technically prohibited by the code.
Okay. And then the last
I'll also-
question I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add briefly that that's not an unusual amendment. Most communities do prohibit vehicle signs in that fashion.
So is it a matter of where the vehicle is parked that has the sign, or is it just at all in general?
It's typically if the vehicle's parked right out at the edge of the parking lot, uh, along the street right away, because in
Okay.
effect it becomes a second sign for the business.
I gotcha. Okay. So, for example, if somebody was going to put a campaign magnet on their car supporting a run for city council, that doesn't necessarily apply here.
That would be a political sign, so I think that would not be applicable to the vehicle sign definition,
Okay.
unless
then,
Patrick
sorry.
tells me something different.
I'm not going to tell you something different.
Okay. And then the last question I had on this section was whether or not a flag is considered a sign.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. So moving on, then that
Wait a
would
minute,
wrap up
Dave.
the
Dave, I
Ma'am.
have a question. I guess this is probably more for Patrick with regards to the lawsuit and the political signs. So without having the 30 days or the 7 days, that basically means that anyone who we have a sign up coming, anyone who signs up, the day they sign up, they can start putting political signs all over Belton, and they're up until after the election. So for December, January, February, March, we've got political signs everywhere.
As long as those signs comply with the other regulations for temporary signs contained within the code that are not content specific. I'd also remind council that staff is currently working on a more large scale sign code rewrite that would effectuate a non-content based sign code that will deal with this issue in a different manner, related instead to the construction materials and not to the content of the sign.
Hey, this is Alexa. Mayor's telling you that you can proceed. Do you hear him?
Okay, thank you. I did not hear, but so that would conclude political signs. That is the 2 of the 3 proposed amendments. The final and third proposed amendments pertains to creating a new category for murals. in our downtown overlay district. Presently, we have a definition of signs in the code, and that definition includes paintings. Paintings are categorized as a sign, and as such, the area is limited to 10% of a facade area, 10% of a storefront, or 10% of a building area. So 10% of a wall or 10% of a building area would not be sufficient for an artistic mural. There has been interest in the community to allow murals, and so we are proposing that the council consider amending the definition of signs to include a vinyl application and to create a new definition of murals that would allow a painted mural in the downtown overlay district. Now, this was something that the Planning Commission talked about at length, and they wanted to make sure that there were limitations on location of murals. And so it was explained that the goal really is to only allow painted murals in the downtown area. And this does make some sense to me. Painted murals are typically found in an area where you have sidewalks, pedestrian activity, and on-street parking, more of an urban type situation. So we are proposing that the definition of signs be amended to permit murals as shown on the second page of the spreadsheet. And Patrick helped us with this mural definition. He drew upon several other communities where he has worked, and we took the best of those other communities and created a definition that we hoped would be acceptable to the council.
Question? Do we have Councilwoman Davidson?
Yes, Dave, so I'm looking at section 30-9 under number 1. And it said number 1 in the amended definition. And so number 1 says murals deemed advertising signs, billboards, or graffiti are not encouraged. So I'm a little confused by the wording not encouraged. Is who decides whether or not to approve the mural, and how do we, I guess, how is the approval process black and white versus encouraged? Seems like, well, not encouraged, seems kind of like a gray area to me.
I've lost my audio here. Do I still have my microphone?
Yes.
Okay. I'll see if I can get the audio back, but you don't need to see me. But the Planning Commission has some similar questions about that, Stephanie, and there would be a permit requirement for a mural in the same fashion for any other type of sign. And the work that the Planning Commission reviewed pertained to content of the mural. And Patrick, you can help me with this, some of the work that we did in terms of appropriateness of a mural and the permit requirements.
Yeah, and as I discussed when it came to the political sign, Reed v. City of Gilbert did create a significant change in how cities regulate signs, specifically that we can't regulate signs based on their content, which is why it's not encouraged, because we could not prohibit that sort of speech, but we do want to make it so that potential people painting murals understand that we desire murals that are more artistic and creative in nature and less just an advertisement for a business. And then on Dave's end, what we discussed is there will still be a permit process, and there will still be review by Dave and necessary compliance with other provisions of the zoning ordinance and the Old Town Belton overlay district in regards to design and things of that nature. Also, I would note that 30-9T3 is pretty much the only sort of content-based regulation we can apply, because that comes straight from a Supreme Court case regarding what sort of speech is deemed to be obscene and can be regulated and prohibited without violation of the First Amendment. But there will still be a sign permit process that will need to go through the Community Development Department and Dave. But we just wanted to put in there that kind of our thoughts and what we wanted to encourage in downtown when it came to murals.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any others? Councilman, who we got? Councilman Savage.
So I'm wondering how, if you do this for downtown, I don't see how you can keep from having to do it in other areas if they want it. I'm not sure that I agree with having it at all. I also would have to say that that becomes an additional maintenance issue, which we've had to deal with even in the Old Town District. I'm not sold on this. So tell me a little bit more about that. How are we going to keep it from spreading across the whole town and then the maintenance as a whole? It seems like it's going to be potentially a problem.
Well, the provisions do require that the murals be maintained and not deteriorated. I guess this might be an appropriate time to mention that we had a businessman in downtown Belton that pointed out that you see a lot of vinyl applications for murals rather than painted murals. I guess the art of painting art murals on a building is there's not as many sign painters as there used to be, and technologically, vinyl can be done on a computer, and vinyl can be applied to a brick wall, and vinyl's not going to fade like paint might. So perhaps that's part of the answer, Mr. Savage. This individual suggests, this language does require maintenance be provided if you're going to have a mural, and we would have code enforcement activities, code enforcement options to help us out if we got into a situation where a painted mural was deteriorating.
So you're still not limited to, you can paint it if you want to, and on the background that it might be on could be a potential issue. What about how do you keep this from, if it's good for the, if it's good
sorry,
for
I did not
if it
catch
is
that
good for
question.
downtown, why isn't it good for the rest of the city then? And I think that'll be a question come up in the future. Did you hear me?
Yes, I do believe I did hear you. I guess that would be up to the council. I mean, the planning commission felt like murals were appropriate in the central business district. And again, as I said earlier, where you have pedestrian activity, on-street parking, and in buildings built closer to the street rather than more of a suburban shopping center development. But this is the planning commission's recommendation that the council could work to achieve a different goal.
It's not that I'm wanting to achieve a different goal here. I think that if you open that door, that we will be asked and will not be able to turn it down across any part of the city. I would think that would just fall. It's probably a question back to Patrick that could explain that better, but I don't think that you can do for one and not do for all. I don't agree with any of it, to be honest with you right here now, but I'm trying to prevent a problem for the future, or what I believe to be a problem.
I would note for Councilmember Savage and all members of the council that we do have different zoning restrictions for different locations. This is essentially just a continuation of that. Downtown has different zoning restrictions than out on 58 Highway. Our residential areas have different zoning restrictions than our commercial areas. So in this case, it has been deemed conducive by the Planning Commission based on another recommendation from staff that murals be allowed in the part of the city that has unique characteristics that are different from other parts of the city. For example, along 58 Highway or in our more residential R1 neighborhoods. So I think there is at least a decent footing to stand on that downtown characteristically is different than everywhere else. And it already has its own overlay zone that is a zoning restriction that is significantly different than other areas of town. So this is more almost a continuation of that, in that the city deems that the Old Town area has different design criteria than, say, Apple Valley or the areas around Hargis Lake or 58 Highway. So I do believe there is strong legal footing as to why we are allowing it here, but not going to allow it in other areas that lack those similar characteristics to downtown.
Well, also, that's a historical area downtown. Does that make any sense to anybody? That's a historical area downtown that does make it different. Other comments or questions so far? Seeing none, what do we got left? Are we down to section 28.8? Dave, are you up to it?
Yes, thank you. I said we had 3 major amendments. Oops, but there's 4. Yes. The last item we have for council consideration pertains to fence requirements. Chapter 28 in the Unified Development Code provides fence requirements for residential, agricultural, and commercial and industrial areas. We're going to talk about fence regulations in commercial and industrial areas. Existing provisions in the code state that no fence shall project in front of the front line of the building. So basically, in a commercial area or industrial area, you just can't have a fence in front of a building. We have had inquiry from 2 large businesses in Belton about, and those businesses have display and employee parking in front of their buildings, and they expressed a need for security fences in front of their buildings. And present provisions of the code would not allow security fences in front of the building. So we have a proposed amendment to address that situation that would allow decorative metal security fences in front of buildings in commercial and industrial areas in excess of 10 acres. So those are large industrial buildings, large buildings on 10 plus acres that have employee parking in front of them, and the proposed amendment would set up and allow security fencing in front of those buildings. This would not be an amendment that would allow decorative fencing in smaller retail or shopping center developments. We don't think that would be appropriate. So that's why there's a 10-acre minimum to set up and address the concerns that were expressed by several existing large businesses in the community. So that's the summary of existing provisions and the proposed amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that.
Councilman Clark?
Don't we have a business out there off of Cambridge that already has something like that? So you're saying that's an illegal fence?
Well, if there is, yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because they got like secured parking and you got to go through a fence, a secured gate to get in there at the corner of Cambridge and Mullen. I mean, I go by for 20 years and never thought anything wrong on it, but it's probably on 10 acres or more, I bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that technically would violate the code, yes. But we would consider that legal non-conforming.
Other comments or questions? Is that all we have, Dave? Dave, do you have anything else?
That's all I have this evening, sir.
Okie dokie. what do we have? Are you done with this? You got more on this one?
No, sir.
Yes,
That
Mayor.
would complete the summary of the planning commission recommendation.
And that completes our work session for this evening, Mayor.
Okay, with that, we're going to adjourn the work session. And right now, we're going to call the meeting to order, the regular meeting. And I guess I'm going to lead in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. So we have a roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Here?
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Lathrop,
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel, Councilmember Trutzel, are you still here?
Looks like we lost him.
You dropped off my screen.
Mhm.
Okay, Jordan, if you're still there, will you please contact Councilmember Trutzel and we'll move on. Councilmember Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Davidson,
Here.
Councilmember Peak.
Here,
Mayor, Mayor.
Sir?
Yeah, just so you know, this may have affected Chet, but we had a little bit of a flicker, a power interruption just briefly.
Yep.
And he may be on a computer where he lost power enough to shut him down. I'm on a battery operated device, so it didn't affect me with you guys. Just FYI.
Do most people have battery powered ones?
I heard the boom.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Oh my. Okay, so should we go ahead and go? Okay. We have no personal appearances this evening, obviously. Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
Councilman Clark with the motion and Councilman Finn. Did you get those, Andrea?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Motion and second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Moving on. Regular agenda. A motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2020-53.
An ordinance approving the final plat for Tradition's third plat, attractive land lying in section 13, township 46, range 33, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present.
Second. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
I vote aye. Chet's back on my screen now.
Chet, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chet, you're muted. You got to pay that electric bill. Okay. He's got, did you get him?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Moving on. B, a motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2020-54.
An ordinance approving the final plat for Tradition's fourth plat, attractive land lying in section 13, township 46, range 33, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 Did we, are you still muted, Chet?
He's talking away.
He could be cussing at us, you know that. That
Yes,
motion
aye.
passes.
Yeah.
Okay. That motion did pass. C, a motion approving the final reading of bill number 2020-55.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Belton, Missouri, amending Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Belton, enacting new provisions relating to the city's purchasing policy, and adopting the City of Belton purchasing policy.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously. Wow. Okay.
Jet's struggling.
D, motion approving the final reading of bill number 2020-56.
An ordinance approving for a 20-foot natural gas easement overlaying the existing 20-foot Spire easement along Markey Road and a 10-foot natural gas easement on CB Drive for Spire, Missouri, Inc., adjacent to the west edge of CB Drive to install a natural gas line to provide heat to all the buildings that are part of the Public Works facility.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 Aye, I hope.
Aye.
That motion passes. Wow. E, motion approving the final reading of bill number 2020-57.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2021 adopted city budget for the purpose of increasing the budget for the new Public Works facility project and decreasing the budget for the Public Works Department.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 That motion passes. F, a motion approving the first reading of bill number 2020-58.
An ordinance amending sections 1-5, 28-8, 30-6, and 30-9 of the Unified Development Code to advance new regulations, address conflicts, and revise wording to provide language that is easier to understand for all users of the code.
Present.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Councilman Van Winkle.
Yeah, I was under the impression there was still some more work to be done, but maybe I just misunderstood a statement in there. Are we comfortable with these being the smoothed out version?
Did that go to you, City Manager?
Yes, this evening, what we're doing right now is we are correcting the language due to, specifically in the sign language that addresses the decisions that were made by the Supreme Court. In the meantime, we are also working on revised language that we will be bringing back to you that will replace that language that will actually talk about what our new sign ordinances will be. As such, because some of this impacts individuals that will be signing up on December 15th when that process starts, there will be a draft of what the existing ordinance will look like on the 15th so that everyone is aware of what that may be as they go forward, should the council approve that in January when that's brought to you at that time.
Councilman Finn.
Yes. Are we prepared to enforce these new regulations as we move forward? I know we can legislate all day long if we want to, but are we actually prepared to enforce these regulations on these codes?
Are we prepared to enforce these new regulations? Councilman Finn, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, Dave just joined us here in the council room, and I wanted to verify once again with him, and he said, yes, we are.
Councilman Clark.
Can we actually put some like monetary punishment on for like, especially that's like the snipe signs, as they're called?
Wow.
I mean, I think, first of all, a lot of these people that put their signs up don't even have a business license in the city of Belton. And then we just allow them to be everywhere. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Girl Scouts, but they've got signs everywhere, and I don't think they should be up either. So I just think that, you know, if it's in somebody's yard, I get it, but they're in the right of way everywhere. But I just think we need to have some type of punishment for those signs if we can do it.
What we tried to do in the past, Councilman Clark, is when we have repeat offenders, you know, sometimes with like Girl Scout cookies or whatever you're saying, we do, if you see that they're repeating, we contact them and let them know, hey, we've picked up your snipe signs over and over. You continue to do this, we're going to give you a notice of violation. Please stop doing it. And that typically works because that's just a little short window of time that that's occurring. And so we've tried to do it more through the act of persuasion than continuing to do notices of violations in those cases.
Well, it hasn't worked for that Stir Tremendous sign. I can tell you that. I see it everywhere. So,
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get any Girl Scout cookies.
I like the peanut butter ones, by the way.
Councilman Savage. Councilman Savage.
So what is the definition of decorative? Do we have a definition of a decorative metal security fence? If we do not, I think we need to put that together.
There would be a permit requirement. We would require fence permit, we'd review it with a fence permit.
Excuse me, I can't hear.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting the clarification from Dave before I could repeat it. Yeah, that's okay. We would require them to provide what the detail of their fencing would be, and then we would then be the ones that approve it. So, for example, if somebody tried to put in a chain link fence, we would say, no, that's not decorative in nature. You need to provide what another type of fence, and Dave would give them examples, and then they would provide that back to us in a specification and a drawing, actually.
Councilman Finn, you were next.
No, I'm not done.
Oh, you're not done. Okay.
So Dave would give examples of what we would expect. I'd like to know what those are, please.
We could prepare some examples for folks if they did have to do a Google search. Decorative metal fences. My internet's down, so I don't.
Okay, so what Dave's saying is that we've gone back. So for example, we have a company right now that has brought us a specification for a fence. What he did was Dave researched and found information on a decorative metal fence, and then which was basically an iron fence, and provided it to them to let them know what would be what is the ideal fence to be able to put in there.
Okay, so we have the ability to control that if this is approved as to what's going to go in, whether we approve or disapprove. We've got we can decide if it fits the definition of decorative fence, I guess would be what I'd ask.
That's correct. And one of the other, it's kind of like what we look at when Dave's also looking at a landscaping plan. He takes a look at what the minimums are and what should be a best practice and what we want to see for Belton in the future in order to improve the appearance of new buildings that are coming in.
I think that's fine. I would definitely would have liked to have seen some of Dave's ideas of what is a decorative. I'd like to see the definition. I would feel more comfortable with that. I would like to see that as it's coming through here, but maybe we can have that for the next reading if we read this one.
Yeah, we can do that. Well, probably what we'll do is provide the examples of what some of the businesses have brought to us that that we have looked at and agreed with. So we can bring that.
Thank you.
I did see Dave out counting the landscaping brush, the bushes at the new Casey's. How many did they have today? It was a lot. I know that. So the landscaping is beautiful. Councilman Van Winkle.
I think Councilman Finn's ahead of me, but I would like to get in line to make a comment.
Age before beauty, Mr. Van Winkle.
Did you say age before beauty?
Yeah. Indeed.
Okay. I guess I'm looking down the road a little bit, wondering where we're going to end up. Let's say if we go with this. So I got a couple of just little questions. Have the businesses downtown been polled? Is this like a widespread interest, or is this just a small interest? And then the other question would be contemporary community standards as part of this section 30-9. I don't know if we have that defined any better there. I know the mayor has different standards than I have, but then I guess the other thing would be when we look at doing this, are there going to be many or any restrictions, or as long as it's, as long as somebody wants a mural, it doesn't matter, where they're putting it, as long as it's on the side of their building or as described in here. One of the things that concerns me is the distraction from our park to the west. And that's that could be distracted depending upon what's put on, say, the far end of Main Street there. So that's all I've got. Thank you. And thank you, Councilman Finn.
Anytime.
Councilman Finn.
I wanted to draw attention mainly to the fence portion. I think we should have, like Councilman Savage mentioned, I think we need to have some materials there. But I can also say I like to keep it subjective, because as time goes by, as long as we're looking at products that are aesthetic to the community, then I think that's a good thing that we could go in and say, yeah, that's maybe a newer style, but it's still aesthetic. Maybe we didn't have that up front, but we have some guidelines or some parameters, but then we can also have the ability to continue to evolve, if you will, with newer products as time goes by. So I like that idea, but I would like to see a guideline of some materials, powder coated steel, aluminum, wrought iron, things like that. We want to see those up front, but have other options in the future as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And to go back and answer Councilman Van Winkle some of his questions, you asked if there was a widespread desire downtown. It's long been a conversation among Belton Main Street to look at one of the buildings that the side, it was where one of the buildings was torn down, and the side they've gone in and cleaned it up. And there's been a desire and a discussion about wanting to put a mural, historic type mural on that building that kind of denotes the feeling and the spirit of downtown Belton. And so they've talked about wanting to do that building. We also have the new brewery that's getting ready to go in right across the street on Ella, that they have the desire on the side of their building to put a mural in that's tasteful, that goes to also the spirit of not only their business, but the spirit of Belton. And they understand that they want to be able to do that. And this will be able to provide them with that opportunity to do that. There's also been discussion in City Hall. The end of City Hall that also faces Ella is a plain structure. And it would be nice to be able to put some type of a mural there that also denotes the history of Belton and what's occurred there, and it gives a positive message to the community. And that's a very big attractant for people that go to different areas of town. Parkville's got some on their buildings, Weston has some on their buildings, and typically where you see those is in their older town area, it's in their historic area, and it keeps with the spirit of that area. So yeah, there has been a desire, there's been a lot of discussion, including the Belton Main Street organization. When you talk about the community standards for specific sign types, I'm going to have to go back and take a look at that and follow up with you on your questions on that. I don't think going forward, the third part of your question, distraction to the park to the west, I don't think that's the intent for that area. If anything, it's to build a community of Main Street and a business feel that brings more people to the area, that brings that foot pattern, that people come not only to see the signs, but they come then and shop the area and eat in the area, and it's a draw.
And I'll answer Councilmember Van Winkle's question about the community standards portion. So that language all comes from Miller versus California, which is a 1973 Supreme Court case involving what is deemed obscene. And that language, that community standard language, is specifically there so that it's not the definition of obscene or what is not allowed is not something that is set in stone, left forever unchanged. And it's sort of a moving target, if you will, that the city and city staff would have to determine on a case-by-case basis by looking at what the mural depicts, and then also thinking about what are the community standards in the city of Belton and whether or not it complies with those standards. So it is almost intentionally vague in that it is meant to be a almost moving thing based on the progression of time and kind of standards as they evolve in the community.
Thank you for your answers. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, anything else on that? With that, we've got a motion and a second. Discussion's done. Everybody okay? All in favor? Aye. Do we want to do it one by one? Leave your hands up if you want to count it. That way we'll know who voted for it. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Okay. City Council Liaison reports. Park, Councilwoman Davidson.
The High Blue Wellness Center had their party last weekend and it was completely sold out. So it was a successful event. Beginning January 6th, the High Blue Wellness Center is holding a 12-week fit challenge where certified trainers will lead you through workouts via Zoom, helping everyone reach their wellness goals. No equipment is required. It's just commitment. And then college students, they're having a special for you. Let the winter break fun begin. High Blue Wellness is offering a college winter break special, a 1-month pass that expires on January 31st, 2021, regardless of when the pass is purchased. So the earlier the purchase, the better the deal. For Cass County residents, it's just $40. No refunds though. Just show proof of college enrollment for the spring of 2021 semester. That's a class schedule, not college ID. And we hope to see you around for the extended break. That's it.
I said, thank you, ma'am, and I'm saying Park's doing an outstanding job still, which comes to mayor's communication. I walk a lot now and I enjoy the flora and the fauna. I just enjoy being out there early, freezing. My hair was even froze this morning. Not that some of you worry about that because you probably don't have as much hair as I do. But I will say that the rocks, the painted rocks, that has been incredible throughout the Belton Raymore areas. And it's even spread into the city now. And you see people taking the rocks that they find in Belton Raymore area into different places. It's really a fun thing, and I want to encourage people. It's crazy. It's a lot of fun. It would really be good, city manager, if we had better internet so we wouldn't have these problems with this. This is pretty wild out here. Okay, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we go further, I've just received a message from Andrea. Councilman Lathrop, we do need to confirm on that last item for the vote on the motion approving the first reading of bill number 2020-58 on the signs. We do need to know your vote. Was that a yay or a nay?
It was a nay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea. As for the city manager's report, the first item I have this evening is to go to Greg Rokos. He has an update on infrastructure in the city. Greg?
Our weekly update or meeting update for waterline breaks. We had two this past weekend, one at the 500 block of Park and one at the 400 block of Pacific. Some of you may have seen that some people were wondering why it took us so long to get to one of them. We're actually given the wrong address. And so we left because there wasn't a water main break. And then we went back, we got another call and got the correct answer and got to the right place. So if anybody has any questions about that, but that's our water main break update.
I'd also like to thank Greg and his crew. They came to City Hall. We had a sewer line break under City Hall last week. It's continued to be somewhat of a difficulty to work in the building. It's quite odoriferous. And, but I do want to thank them for coming in and being so attentive of getting that taken care of. It's been quite an ordeal. So kudos to Public Works. The next person is Carolyn. You have an update for the council this evening?
Yes, good evening. I do have an update. I want to let you all know that both the Casey's and the Aspen Dental that are located, both of them on 163rd Street near I-49, are both undergoing their final inspections, and they are both anticipated to be opened by the end of this month.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I appreciate that update. And the last thing that I have for the council this evening is to remind you that there is not a meeting on December 22nd. We do not have anything for the agenda, so that meeting has been canceled. And then I also wanted to let you know, we discussed at the last meeting that we were going to be starting an education campaign talking about the importance of wearing a mask, washing your hands, socially distancing. Those flyers and those posters have come in between the fire department and the police department. They have distributed all of those. And the feedback from them is that it's very positive. The businesses, the majority of businesses have asked staff to go ahead and hang them in the windows for them. And so we have, and they are very appreciative. We are in the process now of attaining those same type of information, and it will be in Spanish. And we hope to be able to redistribute to those shops that requested those. So that's been a very positive process for us. We have about 60 flyers left. And so if we have any more requests for those, we will be distributing those, but you will be seeing those around town. And Mayor, that concludes our report for this evening.
Okay, communications from City Council. Who's got a communication? Councilwoman Peak.
Yes, I just want to, since we're not meeting again, and there will be more notices coming out on the city's Facebook page, remind everyone about the Belton Christmas Eve jingle at 6 p.m. to go out and ring your little bells.
What if we have big bells? So there's
Well,
gonna be,
ring the big bell so we can hear them all over the town, all
Is
over the
it-
city.
am I gonna get a ticket?
Negative.
Okay. Anybody else got a communication this evening? Okay, seeing none. With that, I'd entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss matters pertaining to the leasing, purchasing, or sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-2, and to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri Statute 610-021-12, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
So
Resume.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 Aye. Who hasn't voted yet?
Savage.
Tim.
He's got an aye. Okay.
Aye.
Who else? And Gary. Is that everybody? And Chet
Aye.
and Dean. Okay, thank you. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.